Let's try a question that has to do with related rates. Let's say you have a ladder that is 5 meters long, and it leans against the wall such that the bottom of the ladder is touching the floor, and the top of the ladder is touching the wall. Now let's say a person drags the bottom of the ladder at 1.2 meters per second. No, actually, sorry, 0.5 or a half a meter per second in the right direction. How fast will the top of the ladder be sliding down when the ladder is 3 meters from the wall? The bottom of the ladder is 3 meters, so this distance is 3 meters. Well, how about we set an equation relating the height and this distance and the length of the ladder? Well, you might know from Pythagoras, since this is a vertical wall, then x squared plus y squared equals 25 squared. Sorry, no, 5 squared, which is 25. Yeah, x squared plus y squared equals 25. Now, what we might want to do in this case, if we take the derivative of both sides with respect to time, we'll be able to plug in the derivative of x with respect to t, because we know that is 1 over 2 meters per second. So let's take the derivative of both sides. So d over dt of x squared plus y squared equals d over dt of 25. So d over dt of x squared, well, that would be, you can rewrite that as d over dx times dx over dt, right? Because technically the dx and dx would cancel, so you would still have the function of d over dt, and this would be of x squared plus, and you can do the same for y, d over dy times dy over dt of y squared equals, and the derivative of constant is 0. Okay, now to make things a little easier, you can bring this term over here, and you can do the same for y, just so you can see that it's taking the derivative of y. So the derivative of x squared with respect to x times dx over dt plus d over dy of y squared times dy over dt equals 0. Now what's the derivative of x squared with respect to x? Well, you can use the power rule, and that's going to be 2x times dx over dt, right? This term here. Now plus 2y dy over dt equals to 0. Now, what are you actually trying to solve for? You want to know how fast the top is sliding down the wall. So the top, this distance over here is y, right? So the speed at which this is going down is actually a change in y over a change in time, or dy over dt. So you're looking for this quantity right here. So let's isolate that. So let's bring this term to the other side. You get 2y. Actually, let's divide both sides by 2, make things easier. So you get y times dy over dt equals negative x times dx over dt. And if you divide both sides by y, you get that. Let's just delete that. Yeah. So you might think, what is this term going to be? Well, this is actually given, because this is a change in x for a given change in t. And that's just velocity, right? A change in position over a change in time, which is actually given over here. The bottom of the ladder moves at 1.2 meters per second. So this, sorry, 0.5 meters per second. So this is actually going to be equal to a half. So we can rewrite that dy over dt equals negative x over y times a half, 1 over 2. Now, so you're going to have to plug in x and y, but you don't know what y is, right? You know the x value is going to be 3 meters, so you can actually just calculate y with Pythagoras, right? You have your original equation, and you can solve for y. Y equals the square root of 25 minus x squared. So let's go back down here and we can try plugging that in. dt equals negative x over root 25 minus x squared times a half meters per second. And that's going to be negative x, well, x is equal to 3, right? Let's write that. At x equals to 3 meters. 3 meters. This is meters squared. Yes. You can choose to do it with units or without units. I'm just doing it with units. If you want, I'll do it without units after. So this is going to be dy over dt equals negative 3 meters over root, and the 5 meters was squared, so it was 25 meters squared minus x squared. 3 squared is 9 meters squared times a half meters per second. This is equal to dy over dt equals to negative 3 over 25 minus 9 is 16, root 16 equals 4, right? So negative 3 meters over 4 meters. Meters cancel out. You get negative 3 over 4 times a half meters per second, which is negative 3 over 8 meters per second. Let's check. Yes, I'm right. Okay. Now, if that's a little confusing for you with the units, you can actually do it without the units, as long as you kind of know what units you started with and what units you're ending with. So let's go back to where I was before. dy, so this step over here, just without the units. dy over dt equals negative x over y times a half, and we're leaving the units out for this example. dy over dt equals negative 3 over, and we calculated y to be 4, 1 half times 1 half, and this is going to be negative 3 over 8. And here's the tricky part, you have to remember what your units were. So if this is in meters per second, this is likely going to be in meters per second. So yes, negative 3 over 8 meters per second. Now if it's negative, what does that mean? Well, y gets bigger and bigger in this direction, and it's getting smaller in that direction, right? So negative value for dy over dt just means that this ladder is slipping downwards. So how fast will the top be sliding down the wall? Well, it'll be sliding down at 3 over 8 meters per second, right? Because the negative here just indicates that it's sliding down. It's not actually, you don't have to worry about it. Yeah. So this is the rate at which it's sliding down. Now let's try part B. That was A. What does that ask for? When the top of the ladder is 2 meters from the floor. That's actually pretty easy. We don't have to do the entire thing again. You just take this equation that we have, right? dy over dt equals to negative x over y times a half. And this time you solve for x when you know that y is 2. So scroll down a bit more. dy, actually, this equals negative, and x is going to be equal to, if you remember your original equation up here, x is going to be equal to root 25 minus y squared. So let's write that. Negative root 25 minus y squared all over y times a half. And you know that y is 2, right? So at y equals to 2 meters. So this is going to be equal to dy over dt is going to be equal to negative root 25 minus 2 squared is 4 over 2 times a half. And that will be dy over dt. 25 minus 4 is 21, so negative root 21 over 2 times 2, 4. And I think that's right. Let me just check. Yes. Meters per second. Right? Again, you can choose to keep the units or not. That's just whatever floats your boat. And the negative, what does the negative indicate? Well, we're looking at dy over dt. So that just means that your change in y is going to be negative. That just means that this velocity again is going downwards. So what does the original question ask? What will the velocity? How fast will the top be sliding down the wall when the ladder is 2 meters from the floor? So yes, it will be oh, why is it scrolling so weirdly? Yes, it will be sliding down. So sliding down. Oops, sliding down at root 21 over 4 meters per second. Yeah, and that's just one of the simple related rates questions there were. Alright, hope you learned something.